Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new expanded deck profile. I know it's been a while since I've done it, but I'm just going to add another filler video in for this Friday since the usual tabletop gameplay is not in place. So I decided I'd talk about one of my favorite expanded decks that I've been playing in a little bit of free time. Ultimately, I've been abandoning the expanded format slowly but surely. The expanded format is really just not fun to play right now. There essentially just isn't games against the meta decks. The meta has basically just entirely become unplayable cesspool turn to win decks, and I just don't enjoy it anymore. So this is probably going to be the last expanded deck profile I do. With live coming out, expanded will be gone, but I figured to talk about one of my favorite decks just before it goes, and this is an updated version of Orbeetle VMAX, which I did a video covering back in the day. This card got a new card from Crown Zenith, Radiant Eternatus, that makes the deck a lot better though. I think this goes from being like a meme deck that's way too hard to get working to a legitimate, fun, and very like actually solid rogue deck in this format, which is just a blast to play. Ultimately, you know, if you're going to ask if this deck beats the current meta decks, probably not. Shadow Rider can easily one-hit KO you, which you don't love. And things like the Garchomp Giratina with its GX tech can just remove your guys from the board, and it's just like, I literally can't play the game. Cool, that's what Expanded's like right now. But if you want to play on the ladder, just have some fun, maybe face some, like, you know, maybe some Palkia or something like that. That's something that's a little bit more manageable. Or you can just bully the lower ladder, whatever works for you. Orbeetle VMAX is the build around here. This amazing T0 artwork on this character, super rare. 310 HP is not honestly amazing. For a VMAX, it is on the lower end of the VMAX scale, going from 300 to 340-ish. It is like a survivable HP, so you do live most attacks, and that's what we're going for here, is because we do not want to be one-hit KO'd by anything, and ultimately matchups where we're just going to hit for weakness or get one-hit KO'd are not going to be good matchups. So try to avoid those if at all possible. 310 HP does mean you can take some hits though, so hopefully you can take whatever hit you get thrown at you. Then we have Eerie Beam, the ability, main build around this deck. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. As I explained in my other video, this is one of the win conditions. We have 3 different win conditions we're going for in this deck, and all of them are really, really good. So, Eerie Beam is just going to put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. If your opponent's playing into it, or if they just have to bench a lot of Pokemon for their strategy to work, you can just easily just destroy their board with damage counters, and then either take knockouts or move them around the field to take your prizes in one go. G-Max Wave of the attack, Grass Colorless, is actually payable in this deck. This deck does 50 more damage for each energy touch your opponent's active Pokemon. And this attack seems awful, and it kind of, like, theoretically is. This attack is not hitting very big numbers, and realistically, you can take a KO with it in a pinch, but, like, it's not going to do a lot. But ultimately, it's more that your opponent does not expect the attack, and that you can use this in a pinch to remove threats to your strategy. An example of this is that I was playing a deck with Yveltal Amazing Rare in it, and they benched the Yveltal, attached an energy to it. It was a Lugia deck, more standard looking Lugia, but playing some like special charge and stuff like that. They benched the Yveltal, attached an energy to it, and then that opened the opportunity, since I was behind on prize cards, to gust up the Yveltal and then do 100 damage plus 10 because of Eerie Beam, making 110, taking the knockout. And you can hit lots of big Pokemon, things like Lugia, for example, Arceus, things that get hit for like 200 damage by the attack. You can get some really good value out of it, and it's really just a cleanup attack if need be, and an attack to save you in a pinch. I would not rely on using the attack though, but we do have the option to do so. Then we have 2 copies of Munchlax with a Snack Search. Once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, put a card from your Scapel on top of your deck. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So what we're going to do is just every turn be recycling our healing cards, our Versus Seekers especially. Versus Seeker gives you lots of options. Sometimes you can recycle important cards for the combo, such as the energies in the deck, the attackers, like the sub-attackers, things like that. Whatever you need, Munchlax can get it back. Does unfortunately get shut off by Silent Lab. This whole deck kind of struggles a little bit with Path, so do watch out for those things. But in general, Munchlax is really, really good. If your opponent ignores it, tries to not deal with it, they're going to regret it because you're going to get back some cards. Then we have Girafarig from Lost Thunder. This is a flex spot. It's one I'm currently testing out. I did play the Bunnelby from Primal Clash in here, testing that out just to give this deck a bit of recoverability and mill in a pinch, play towards one of its win cons. Ultimately, I find Girafarig to be better right now. And, like, are you going to beat Regidrago? Absolutely not. Regidrago is going to tear you a new hole because they take 2 turns in a row, shut off all abilities, and then one-hit KO your entire field at, like, just straight in a row, and what are you going to do about that, right? You can't do anything about that. But Girafarig is useful in a lot of matchups for getting rid of cards your opponent needs. Ultimately, like I said, this deck is building towards win cons, not necessarily just taking all 6 prizes at once. So if you can get like one Eerie Beam, retreat into this Girafarig, and then use the Get Lost attack to set up something that you know you can't deal with, such as in that Lugia game, when I saw the Yveltal go down, I'm like, alright, so I need to take care of this now, get it out of play so my opponent can't get it back. Potentially you'll be playing a deck where they have something in the discard pile that you just can't let them have. You know, maybe a Faba or a Stadium if they have Loose Mean to recover it. Against Control can be good. Just a lot of purposes of Get Lost can be very good. Actually, against Control, this deck does really, really well, surprisingly. Then we have one copy of Radiant Eternatus. This is the build round of the deck as well as Orbeetle, because we don't play any Orbeetle Vs, we need to play Orbeetle VMAX into play with Radiant Eternatus. When you play Pokemon from your hand into your bench, you may search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon VMAX and put them onto your bench if you do your turn ends. Lots of turn-ending abilities in this deck, huh? So 170 HP is kind of respectable too, but you're never attacking with the thing. You can actually attack with it. 200 damage is like not terrible. I have actually attached with it, though I would not recommend it. But it is an option, I suppose, at the very least. We're just using that ability to get 2 Orbeetles into play. If you're getting 1, you're kind of getting really hampered value. My original list played 4 Orbeetle, but Orbeetle just started to clog your hand in the mid-game. You'd need some draw power. You'd be flipping tails in all your Munchlaxes, and you'd need some draw power to get through your deck, and you just draw like 2 Orbeetles in a row. It's like, alright, well, shit, I'm out of it now, right? So I cut down to 3. Potentially could be a problem if you prize one of them, prize even 2, maybe open 2 in the opening hand. You have to shuffle it back in. There's a few problems to do with it, but 3 is played pretty well. 1 Radiant Eternatus, because we can only play 1 Radiant Eternatus in the deck. Which is sad, because I was thinking, oh man, Radiant Gardevoir might be a good inclusion in a second, then I realized the entire build around the deck is Radiant Eternatus, so we literally have to play Radiant Eternatus. Then we have 1 copy of Tapu Lele. We're mainly using it for its magical swap. You can use Psywave, 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active. Sure, you can do something with that. Magical swap, move any amount of damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon any way you like. What we're going to do is use the damage counters placed by Orbeetle. If we're not taking just knockouts and prizes based on that, we can speed up the process quite significantly with Magical Swap, allowing us to move the damage counters around our field, put them in the specific places we needed, usually taking the game-winning damage moving by putting them in the best places to take all of our prizes remaining. So, Tapu Lele is very, very good. Absolutely a necessity in this deck. 1 copy does fine. We have a Rescue Stretcher and Munchlax to get it back. Then we go to the supporters. 4 copies of Steven's Resolve. Search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them in your hand. Your turn ends. The biggest weakness of Steven's Resolve, that unfortunately is a thing in Expanded, is that Marnie is everywhere. Marnie is essentially, in a lot of these decks, even though Marnie you'd think would be like, oh, what, it's expanded super fast, you know, turn to, you know, wins, why would people play Marnie? Well, Marnie is, in a way, a win con, because if you can just brick your opponent, turn 1 going second Marnie while setting up your own board, that's often just a win right there. So Marnie's really popular as a disruption card just because the games are so fast that putting your opponent to a 4-card hand when they've done nothing, instead of like something like N, which would put them to a 6-card hand, which would be more fair, putting them to a 4-card hand from them doing nothing while also getting an extra card, opposed to something like Judge, is just really, really strong. Essentially, you know, you give your opponent like 1 turn if you Marnie them to find something, and if not, they're gone. Steven's Resolve can be big backfire in this format, so it's not like a really good meta call or anything like that. If you want to play potentially Mars in this deck, something that would be a little bit more aggressive but a little bit less able to find things, you could. I go for that in some of my other control lists and some of my other stall lists and stuff like that. Realistically, Steven's Advice is just really good here because we need our healing cards in hand. We need to get the Lucamines in hand. Burst Seekers are like nice to draw into it, so I suppose we don't need that. A lot of times we'll need to piece together knockout combos as well. We have Counter Catcher and Counter Energy. Steven's Advice is just, or Steven's Resolve, not Steven's Advice. Steven's Advice is turn 4 and turn 6. This card is good, that's what I'm saying. You need it. Then we play 4 copies of Cheryl. Heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from the Pokemon that were healed in this way. You can potentially actually heal up to 2 Orbeetle with this. Obviously, you could heal more if you could add more in play, but we're not going to do that. And it is actually relevant because we're trying to stop our opponent in this deck from bossing our Orbeetles, Guzmaning our Orbeetles, whichever you want to say it. So you can actually get really good value out of Cheryl and heal 2 Pokemon at once. We want to be looping this every single turn, whether it be with Munchlax, take off turns to use things like Lusamine, as well as Versus Seeker. You know, we just play as many ways to get back this card as possible because it's very good. The keen-eyed among you may be like, why aren't you playing Iceroller AZ, these other well-known healing cards expanded that decks like Shadow Rider use? And that's because if we pick up our Orbeetle, we can't put it back down very easily. So don't play those cards, play Cheryl instead. 4 copies is very good because we use it all the time. 3 copies of Lusamine, put 2 in any combination of supporter and stadium cards from this pile into your hand. This is a card that forms an infinite loop because if you get back a Lusamine and another supporter or another stadium, you just have an infinite loop of Lusamine plus the other card. You can also use it in a pinch to get back just 2 other cards and then just Versus Seeker for a Lusamine back later to restart the chain. Just a really, really powerful card. No wonder this card got banned and expanded. It really definitely deserves it. But it is incredibly strong in this deck. We're just going to need to recycle our healing cards as much as possible, getting back cards like Faba and Handiwork to achieve a alt win con in a mill out or a remove all the energy of your opponent can also be really, really good. It also just prevents you from decking out with N. We can get ourselves to as many cards in hand as we need to with Lusamine, just constantly growing our hand size, since Lusamine is a card that trades 1 card for 2 cards. Just grow our hand size and our hand back into the deck to make sure we don't deck out. It's just the best card in this deck. We run 3 copies, even though you only need 2 to get the combo off. We run 3, just in case we prize 1, it's not a dead card. I have had games where I prize 2, generally you're able to find them because we play Gladion. Look at your face down prize cards, put one of them into your hand, then shuffle Gladion back into your prize cards face down. So, what you do with Gladion is Gladion, and you look at the prize cards and you're like, is my Cheryl's, my Lusamine, my Counter Catcher, my Fabas, you know, the cards that I really need, Leafy Camo, maybe even my Counter Energy, right? The cards that are going to be useful in this specific matchup, obviously you got to feel out what your opponent's doing to make Gladion really the best use. We play 2 copies just because we want to get those prize cards, and you're going to usually have 2 cards prize that you want. It's not like my Stunfisk deck where there's a lot of dead cards in it, where Gladion's just really, really good. Absolutely play it. If Lusamine's prized, you usually want to grab that, especially if 2 Lusamine are prized. You especially want to grab those, but obviously we play some 1-ofs that are really, really good, so always plan like 5 turns ahead of this deck when you're using Gladion. Then we have N. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, then draws a card for each of his or her remaining prize cards. You could argue this to be Marnie, and that'd be fine. I like N in this deck particularly because a lot of times we're going to give up like 3 prizes, even maybe more, because our opponent will try to take out these guys to try to make progress on your board. Usually bad opponents will do this. They'll take out things like Munchlax and Radiant Eternatus and stuff, not realizing that they only need to KO Orbeetles to win, and that these guys literally don't matter because I'm just not going to let my Orbeetle die so they don't get to take that final few prizes. So N is just really, really good in this deck. Again, you can play Marnie. I would not play Roxanne. Roxanne is not live on turn 1, which N is, as well as Marnie is also live on turn 1. I would not play Ace Trainer. Play something that's live on turn 1, but you do need a shuffle draw. One card you could potentially think about putting into this deck, and I will tell you where to replace it later, is Tate and Liza. Would also be a very good card in this deck. Then we play 2 copies of Rocket's Handiwork. Flip 2 coins for each heads, discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. I've said this before, but it's actually the worst card in Expanded. This card is going to flip 99 tails to your 1 heads. It is the worst card to possibly play in the deck, but it gives us a win con, so we play 2 copies of it. Play 2 just so we don't have to get it if we prize it. Ultimately, you could lower this down to 1. And what this allows us to do is allows us to aim for a 3rd win con, because smart opponents will realize, well, I just don't attack the Orbeetle, and if I can heal off the damage, or, you know, just like something like Radiant Serena, right? Completely counters this deck. I can't put damage in play. If they don't go up on prizes, I can't even attack them. What do? You mill them. You then go to your 3rd win option, which is just milling them. So that's why Handiworks here gives you that 3rd win option when you otherwise just would lose the game instantly. Then we have Faba. Choose a Pokemon tool, Special Energy, or Stadium, and put it into the Lost Zone. So just a really strong card. Obviously, Double Dragon Energy, the best special energy of all time, is in Expanded and is in about 70% of decks, so you're going to be needing to get rid of that often. Path of the Peak can be obviously a very bad thing for turning off our Orbeetle. Silent Lab. Even things like Temple of Sinnoh getting rid of the effects of our special energy. Be very big to get rid of stadiums like that. Tool card, potentially damage modifiers. If your opponent's got a choice belt, it's going to put it over the edge. Time to get rid of that choice belt and say bye-bye. Yeah, it's just, you need one of these in like every single expanded deck. If you're not playing Faba in your expanded deck, you're playing like something like Melgen or Volcarona that really just can't fit it. You know, you're just not playing a good expanded deck if you don't play Faba. It's like the Ranger of this format. You have to play Faba. It's inarguable when like every single deck plays Double Dragon Energy. Then we have Birdkeeper, one copy of this. This is what you could swap for the Tate and Liza. It's just a personal choice in this thing, and I just want to grow my hand. And Birdkeeper allows me to do that. You switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, draw 3 cards. This allows you to obviously get 3 more cards, allowing you to grow your hand size, which can be really important with this deck. This deck can be really vulnerable to hand disruption if you get stuck on a low hand size and aren't able to build it up with things like Loose Mean. Birdkeeper can help you build up a hand size, as well as Steven's Resolve, which we just spoke about earlier. Building up hand size is really strong. We want lots of tool cards, not literal tool cards, but lots of tools in our hand to be able to pull off the combos we need. Birdkeeper also acts as a combo maker. So what you can do, and I've done this quite a bit actually, a play is that you will use Orbeetle, have a recycle energy already on the active Orbeetle, right? So then you Orbeetle, use its Eerie Beam, retreat into the other Orbeetle. Then you use that Orbeetle's Eerie Beam, and assuming you haven't attached your energy for turn, then you can Birdkeeper into your tertiary attackers and attach either Recycle or Counter Energy for Lele and Girafarig. It can also just be good for pivoting into another card we'll see in a moment. So, you know, it's just nice to have. Again, if you want to play Tate and Liza over Birdkeeper, maybe Tate and Liza over the second end, it's really up to you. Then we have one copy of Guzma. Switch one of your opponent's bench one with their active. If you do, switch your active with one of your bench. I originally played 2 Counter Catcher in this list, but I realized the flaw of playing 2 Counter Catcher, and that's that it's harder to reuse. We have to use Munchlax to reuse Counter Catcher, whereas Guzma can be retrieved by Lusamine or Versus Seeker. Guzma's great. Even though we're a deck that's mainly all about spreading, we still attack. And even like in a spread deck, if your opponent benches like a 3 retreat liability, you know, they don't have a Float Stone in their hand or something like that, bring it up, stall it for some time, and then you get some free spread damage, get some Lusamines accrued to get your resources back. Just absolutely valuable. Mainly just here for attacking though. Obviously the switching effect can be good because we're playing Orbeetles, but you're not going to do that too often. Unless you just somehow get like 3 Orbeetles into play. You don't really need 3 Orbeetles though, trust me. Yeah, it's a good card. Bring up the opponent. BTFO, the new guy you brought up, and it's a good time. Then we have 4 copies of Quick Ball. You can play this card only if you discard another card from your hand. Search your deck for a basic, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. What is this for? It's for Radiant Eternatus. We need Radiant Eternatus on turn 1. Obviously, things like Girafarig, Tapu Lele, and Munchlax can be gotten later, but a lot of times you're just going to get them with Steven's Resolve anyway. Quick Ball is mainly just here for Radiant Eternatus on turn 1. On the same vein of that, I do want to talk about other search card here. 1 copy of Mysterious Treasure, discard a card from your hand, search your deck for a Psychic or Dragon. Essentially just acting as a 5th out to Radiant Eternatus, but also acts as an out to our Girafarig and our Tapu Lele. Does not get Munchlax. And you don't want to search out Orbeetles because you're going to search them out with Climatic Gate. Then we have 2 copies of Hisui and Heavy Ball. Look at your face down prizes, reveal a basic Pokemon you find there, put it into your hand, then put Heavy Ball in its place and shuffle your face down prize cards. So this is because we play Radiant Eternatus, and because we're 100% reliant on using Radiant Eternatus, we have to play 2. I would not use 1 Heavy Ball. You need to play 2 because you need to find it early. If Radiant Eternatus is prized, you're going to need that Heavy Ball to go get it, or Gladion. But Gladion is less, spammable. Like, I can use a supporter for turn like N, and then, Hisui and Heavy Ball for the Radiant Eternatus, but I cannot use a supporter like Gladion for turn. That's a bad example. I cannot, like, N and then use Gladion is what I'm trying to say. Really good card. Play 2 of it. Play 2. Play 2. You hear me? Play 2. 2 of these. 2 is a good number. 4 copies of Max Potion. Heal all damage one of your Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from that Pokemon. As you can see, it's just a baby Cheryl. It just happens to 1 Pokemon. Cheryl can discard it from all of your evolution Pokemon. So if you have, let's just say, 240 on this Orbeetle and 240 on this Orbeetle, just heal that clean. Max Potion only do 1, but Max Potion does a crucial thing, and that is take stress off your resources. So I can use Max Potion and then use Lusamine for turn instead of Cheryl, allowing me to accrue more Cheryls in my hand. Essentially taking a turn off of my Cheryling so I can just use one max potion. It's a bit of a cost, and you'll want to use Snack Search Munchlax to get those back, to get the max potions back, but it takes a lot of stress off your other resources in the deck, allows you to play supporters like N, or like Faba, or like Guzma, like Handiwork, instead of using your Cheryl for turn, which can be really, really good, because you can be Cheryl like every other turn. So Max Potion gives you some flexibility there. 2 copies of Lily's Pokédoll. Why? No. Nah, go away. Play it as if it was 30 HP basic Pokemon. If it's in your active at any time, you may discard it and put it on the bottom of your deck. So, and your opponent can't take any prize cards for it. That's why it's here. It's just a stall card. A lot of times the early game can be really good to sit behind if you just retreat into it with something like Munchlax, if you start Munchlax, and then you do Radiant Eternatus, and you can just take an attack off for the first turn. Another thing this card is really, really good for is the Bird Keeper play that I talked about earlier, where you Orbeetle, and then Bird Keeper. If you need to potentially, next turn, you know you're going to want to Lusamine, and you don't have a Max Potion in hand to help alleviate that pressure, you can Bird Keeper into the Lily's Doll, have the Lily's Doll take the hit, get back use the Lusamine for more of your supporters that you need, and it's all good. Lusamine also gets back Stadium, which is really important in this deck, I will say, but we'll talk about that when we get there. 2 copies of Scoop Up Net. Put one of your Pokemon as Navigator GX into your hand. This is just to pick up Radiant Eternatus. We play 2 because we don't want to prize it, because we do need to get Radiant Eternatus out of play a lot of times. There have been situations where I've actually put another Orbeetle into play with Radiant Eternatus before, so picking it up can do that. I've had 3 in play before. I've also had a time where the opponent used Lugia GX's Lost Purge on my Orbeetle to try to get rid of it, and then I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to, put it back into play. Against Control, Control despises this deck, dude. Because you can just scoop up net your Radiant Eternatus, so you don't have a liability in play, and then you just start spreading on them. So unless they have like a captivating Pokebuff in hand, I mean, I don't care, bro. I'm just gonna keep spreading, right? Can't turn off my ability, because I'm just gonna remove your way to turn off the ability with Lusamine over time. So, yeah, very good. Then we have Counter Catcher. Only play 1 copy. Play it if you have more prize cards than your opponent. Switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. Just a great way to bring up something on the bench, eradicate it. And like I said with that Yveltal example, that's what you do there. Counter Catcher, the Yveltal up, hit it, and it's knocked out. Also really good for stalling, so if you see something that, like I said, your opponent can't retreat, same thing with Guzma, you bring it up and you give it a little bit of time in the shine, and then you get some spreading going on and recur your resources with Lusamine. Mainly though, Counter Catcher is more of an offensive weapon than a defensive weapon in this deck, but you can use it on the defensive end, can use it in a pinch just to try to stall something. Usually not going to work all of the time though, so like I said, it's mainly an offensive weapon to take some aggressive plays. We play 1 copy of Stretcher. Choose 1, put a Pokemon into your hand, or shuffle 3 into your deck. Ultimately, you're going to a lot of times do the put 1 into your hand, because you're going to just use it to piece either Girafarig, Munchlax, or Tapu Lele, whichever one you need from your pile, and you can just put them back into play and use their effects of their attacks. Another thing you can do, though, I have done this, is I had a turn where I opened up 2 Orbeetles in hand, so what I did was I quick-balled away an Orbeetle and then shuffled it into the deck. That way Radiant Eternatus could find it with Climactic Gate. So a little bit of synergy there. I would not play the deck without it. You don't use it every game, to be honest, so it seems like a dead card a lot of games, because things like Munchlax can get your cards back, so why play this when you play Munchlax? It's a good card to have, though, especially for that scenario where I mentioned where you discard the Orbeetles and shuffle them back in. That can happen a fair bit, so you want to have a Registrator on hand for when it does. 4 copies of VS Seeker. Put a supporter card from your spell into your hand. Do not go less than 4, because this is 4 Cheryls. This is more Lusamines. A lot of times you're going to lose Lusamine for 2 Cheryls, because you're in a pinch, right? And then what you can do is you can Verse Seeker for Lusamine and Lusamine for 2 Cheryls again, so it can keep the turns going instead of you being forced to go into a 1 Lusamine, 1 Cheryl trade, which can sometimes just be a little bit too slow for your opponent's deck if they're going really, really fast. 2 copies of Leafy Camo Poncho. This is a pretty cool card. Whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects done to the V-Star VMAX card's attached to. So we slap this on our Orbeetle, and we retreat to the bench with 240 damage. Our opponent goes, that Orbeetle's looking kind of tasty. I'm going to gust it up with my Guzma and take the knockout. And then the Guzma does nothing, still gets discarded, because Leafy Camo Poncho blocks all effects supporter cards, meaning Guzma, meaning that if you want to put like an energy on here, like Recycle Energy, and you want to just have it sit there so it doesn't get shuffled back in by something like a Marnie or an N, guess what? Your opponent can't Faba that energy either. Can't Plumeria the energy. Those are some examples of supporters. Those are the main ones you're going to be relevant. The main thing it's here for is Guzma and Boss, though. Your opponent can't bring your guy up into the active as easily, so you can just sit on the bench, take another hit with your active Orbeetle, Sherald the damage off 2 Orbeetles, and you're back to spreading. Then we have 1 copy of Floatstone. This is an arguable spot. I could just see moving this to a 3rd net, or another card in the deck, frankly. So this is a flex spot. I like it still. The original build of this deck didn't play Camo Poncho, it just played Floatstone. Just retreat the Orbeetle into another Orbeetle for free, allowing you to keep your energy attachment safe. But ultimately, you know, Floatstone's pretty good still. If you're going to cut this for a card, again, we've mentioned like Tate and Liza. You know, you could play another recursion card, another tech supporter is always good. There's lots of things you can do, like I think a Misfortune Sisters. You could play a Misfortune Sisters in this deck to help with the milling strategy. You could even play a Flare Grunt just to apply some energy denial in the early game. You could play a 4th Lusamine even, another Shuffle Draw, another Ball Search card like a 2nd Mysterious Treasure, a 3rd Doll. There's really like, it can go anywhere. I just think Floatstone's still fine. But this is definitely probably the most cuttable card in the deck from my testing. Then we have copies of Jubilee Village, 2 of them. Once during your turn, or once during either player's turn, rather, Stadium, that player may shuffle their hand to the deck and draw 5 if they do, their turn ends. What's with ending our turn in this deck? We like doing that. So, what you can do with this is, if your hand's dead, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 5. If your opponent Marnies you into a bad hand, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 5, try to find some healing cards, try to find some loose means, you know, get that combo back going. Really good in the early game for helping us find our Eternatus if we just have an absolutely abhorrent hand. Really good in the mid game. It's just nice to have a Stadium, right? There's a few different Stadiums that you could play in this deck. Potentially could do something around healing, though I don't think it's relevant because it's not healing enough damage. Really, if we just go, let's go take a look at some Stadiums real quick, because I don't think about Stadiums too often, because this deck was pretty set in stone. Also, Tropical Beach. If you have Tropical Beach, just play that, obviously. I don't have a billion packs to trade for Tropical Beaches, so I, in fact, do not have Tropical Beach, but I'm just going to take a look at some Stadiums you potentially play in here, because Stadiums are getting more important and expanded with things like Silent Lab and stuff flying around. So in regards to Stadiums you could play, there's really not that many, to be honest. Forest Giant Plants, if you could play it, but banned. Parallel City you don't want to play because your opponent doesn't want to pair their Pokemon down. Unfortunately, Aether Paradise would be pretty good, but it only works on basic grass instead of just evolved grass. Giving you an HP buff would be really, really good. Sadly, it does not work. None of these do much. Potown's not doing much. You're not putting special conditions. You're not facing GXs or EXs that often, or Shrine of Punishment would be good. I mean, you could put Shrine of Punishment. I don't like that, though. Life Forest is not recoverable. I would not play it. Maybe you could play it. I don't think Life Forest is good. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's good. Just going through these. Like, yeah, you can see, like, none of these other Stadiums are that good. You don't play Basic Energy. You don't want to search the grass Pokemon of the deck. You don't want to take damage from the energy, even if it'd be beneficial for your opponent to take the damage. You don't want your bench Pokemon to take damage, even though they, you know, it can just hurt them. Don't want things Lost Zoned. Well, I mean, maybe you could maybe play Lost City. I'm getting way too high on the Hopium here, but like Lost City, you put Pokemon to Lost Zone when they're knocked out. I could see like a thing for this, but I can ultimately just see it backfiring way more, which is why I don't like it. But you could maybe consider like 1-1-1 Lost City split. But Jubilee Village, or if you have Tropical Beach, play Tropical Beach. Very, very good. 1 copy of Chaotic Swell. Whenever either player plays a Stadium from their hand, discard that Stadium after discarding this one. So with Lusamine, we can keep Chaotic Swell in play for the rest of the game. If we don't think we're getting a hand disrupted, aren't too worried about that. Just put Chaotic Swell in play if we're worried about things like Path of the Peak, Silent Lab, Temple of Sinnoh. Keep Silent Lab, or keep the Swell in play. Swell a day keeps the Silent Lab away. That's what we say around here. So just keep Stadiums out of play. And yeah, we don't have that many Stadiums we benefit from. Maybe you try the Lost City thing. Dude, I'm so high on Copium. Don't do that. Then we have 1 copy of Dowsing Machine. This is the best ace spec for the deck. Discard 2 cards from your hand. Put a trainer card from your pile into your hand. It's another out to healing. It's another Cheryl. It's another Max Potion. You can also use it for things like Counter Catcher. Very good. If your opponent discards your Leaf Camo Poncho with a Field Blower, a lot of times you're going to want to get that back. Lily's Pokédoll. A lot of times you're not even going to use Dowsing Machine. You'll hold it in hand the whole game, and you'll be like, oh yeah, it's so sick out of this Dowsing Machine, then you just won't use it. But it's just like, you want that extra out to healing. So that's why you play it. Could play Computer Search to try to get turn 1 and turn this more consistently. I have not struggled with getting turn 1 and turn this, though. Turn 1 and turn this is super easy to get. Then we have our energy, 2 counter, 2 recycle. We'll go over recycle first because it's a little bit more relevant. Provides colorless. If it's discarded from play, put it into your hand so that it's card pile. So we can retreat or return this for 1 recycle energy, or not return this, our Orbeetle with 1 recycle energy. And then it goes back to our hand, and then we get a free retreat, so we get to do Eerie Beam another time with another Orbeetle. Can retreat into a doll as well. You know the combo with this deck at this point. Also pays for the attack of Get Lost on our Girafarig, so very important there. If you played Bunnelby in the deck, it would also play for its Rototiller, and I forget the other attack, Rototiller and Burrow. Yep, those are the ones. So, important to know there. And then Counter Energy provides colorless. This card should be banned and expanded, but we're going to use it while it's still here. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, and this card is attached to isn't a GX or EX, this card provides any type of energy, but provides 2 energy at a time. So, it provides the grass colorless here, and on Tapu Lele, it provides the psychic colorless, meaning we can use these attacks for a single attachment. I played 1 in this deck before, and I was not happy with it, and that's because playing 1 did not allow me to go for as aggressive plays, and a lot of times you just need to go for the aggressive play where you use Orbeetle VMAX's G-Max Wave to just take a big hit into your opponent, because if you don't go aggressive, sometimes you'll get run over. You need to be able to slow your opponent down, and sometimes the best defense is a good offense. So Counter Energy is really good. Obviously, this card should not be playable in this deck, but because it doesn't say Pokemon V, we can use it freely. Please, God, expanded, you need to ban like 10 cards. Well, that's it for the deck. That's it for the expanded deck profiles in general. I am done with Expanded now. I will go on to retire and live a much happier life playing Retro, where the games last longer than 2 turns and where the decks are actually fun to play. This deck is a lot of fun to play, but ultimately, again, just doesn't match up well against things like Shadow Rider that can one-shot it, things like Guard that just remove your board from existence, and Regidrago, which just take an extra turn for free. Like, these kind of effects are not effects that, like, any deck can really play against besides those decks, so you just sit comfortably as like a C tier deck that can beat lots of other things. If your opponent can't hit one hit KO on you, you're eating. Orbeetle VMAX is an especially fun matchup because, or not Orbeetle, Eternatus VMAX, right? Because you get to put damage on 9 bench Pokemon at once, which is very fun to watch. Frankly, you can like retreat your Pokemon by the time the damage counters are like placed on their Pokemon, and then you set up another Eerie Beam. It's a good time. Play the deck unexpanded. Maybe you have a few changes you want to make to the list. That's what it's here for. The book is yours to write. I'm closing on my page of Expanded. Gonna stop playing the format because I just don't enjoy it anymore. It's really, really toxic, and life is taking it away. Maybe it's better for my mental health. Thank you all so much for watching. Please check out my tabletop videos on Friday, and tier lists on Tuesday, and stay tuned to the Whimscast. See you next.